Welcome back to the How to Podcast series, where we bring on amazing podcasters. And sometimes our podcasters come with not just a podcast to talk about, but a new service for podcasters, which I'm falling in love with, I'm playing with, and having a great time with. You might have heard an episode in the past where I roasted my show with Podpacer, and it was fun. It was interesting to hear what AI thought of my podcast, and I'd encourage you to go take a look at it. It's a really fun exercise. It's kind of like those spicy wings where you have mild, medium, and harsh. And I tried the harsh, and oh my gosh, yeah, it was really fun. So go back and listen to that. It's really fun. But today, one of the creators of Podpacer is here with us today to talk about his show, talk about more about Podpacer, and support you as a podcaster. And Slobodan's here as well. His friends call him Sani. So you have a choice. We're going to go with Sani. But Sani, welcome to the How to Podcast series.
Thank you, Dave. Pleasure to be a guest of the show. And yeah, like you said, you tried the harsh roast. When we were building it, I had to try it 50 times at least. So my feelings were hurt at least 50 times while my show was getting roasted by the tool that I built, basically. So, hey, it can always be worse. You can always go for a mild roast.
There you go. It's kind of like coffee. You can have mild, medium, and right.
Exactly.
We'll celebrate our coffee together. And but yeah, everyone, you got to go try podpacer.com. Go to all the way to the bottom of the page, and you'll see the roast my show thing, and it's interesting. It's really fun. Again, I say if you're going to do the harsh, put on an extra layer of clothes and come at it in gentleness and just listen and take out the little points that are going to make you go, I never saw my podcast in that light. It's really interesting. So, Sani, I love that you put that out there as this little thing on the bottom of the page for us to play with. It's really a nice introduction to Podpacer. You're not a roast my show platform, but the fact that you have that on there, I thought that was a nice little add-on. So thank you for doing that.
My pleasure. Well, the idea was, when you want to get new users to try your product, give them something that they will appreciate and they will have fun with, and then they get more interested in the product itself. So that's why we built the Roast My Podcast thing. It's free. Worth mentioning that Roast My Podcast is and forever will be free. It takes your podcast, it picks up the episodes you have, descriptions, titles, and then it kind of makes fun of it. Like that, that's all.
Yeah. It picked up on the fact that I did an episode where I compared characteristics from the Wizard of Oz movie and compared them to podcasts and how we need to have like a heart, we need to have a brain, we need to have courage, and we need a home. Right? Those are my main 4 points. And it just roasted me for that. Kind of like, who does this? Who compares movie characters to podcasts? This guy does.
It was a good episode, though. It was a good episode.
But yeah, so it was funny for them to pick up on that because, anyways, I loved it. It was really fun. I found it a lot of fun. I encourage everybody to go try it. You just drop in your podcast and it picks it up right there. And it's really, really fun. So everyone do that. Before we jump into more about Podpacer, let's talk about your podcast, Sani. Like, how long have you been podcasting? Tell us about your show.
Right. So to this day, I think it's 4 years and 1 month because I started February 18, 2021. It's a pandemic podcast that survived the pandemic. So like many others, I started during the pandemic. Like not as many others, I survived the pandemic's podcasting. The podcast was really, pandemic, locked at home, no one to talk to. Your family, but you talk to them all day, every day. And the idea was, I want to build a personal network, my professional network, actually, not personal network. And now is the time. Like there are all those people that I look up to, that I took their courses, learning from them. I'm in conversion rate optimization industry. Like that's my background. And I just started pinging them on LinkedIn and saying, hey, I'm starting a podcast. Like maybe you would want to be on it. Like, I wasn't even confident. Like, why would they say yes? I was always surprised when they would say yes. And to my shock at the time, more people said yes than no and kind of snowballed from there. And this is now at episode 191 releasing tomorrow, something like that. I'm very proud of the consistency. Yeah. And the fact that it didn't give up.
And just having the time with those people, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I love how podcasting grows your community and grows your connections. And you can have time with people that may be a little further down the road than you are, that you look up to. And they're like, sure, to invite them to have a coffee with you. It's like, well, I'm kind of busy. But when you put the word podcast in the request, they're like, well, sure, I'd love to talk to you.
See, I was talking to another podcaster last week, and this is the same example she used. When you ask them to have a virtual coffee, there's, why would I do that? Want to be on my podcast? Sure, no problem. Same amount of time. Maybe they even need to prepare for the podcast, and they say yes. So it's kind of magical, and this is I've helped a few people over the last 6-8 months set up their own podcast, start their own podcast. Not like I'm an expert, but I've been doing it for a long time, and they come to me for advice. Not a service I'm charging for. And the one thing that no one considers when they want to launch a podcast is the networking effect and how it helps build a professional network. Personal network, I'm sure, as well, but professional network is what I really care for at the time. It is the most magical tool because you have the 30 minutes, 60 minutes to record, but you have the before, you have the after, and you have access to that person who, well, you never know how they will come in handy or be useful, or you can help them or whatever it is. So if you're on the fence thinking about starting a podcast, the networking effect, that is, it's the best. It's the best part.
You're proving it to me right now. Like the fact that I have time with you.
There you go, yeah.
Fancy pants with a big website and all this great stuff, and you're here making time for me. Like, it works. So you're proving it right now.
I mean, I've had 4 years of proof that it works because it's getting easier as you go. That's another really good part. And as you have someone who is, let's say, higher up than you are in the pecking order professionally, even though I don't really see it that way. Like, no one's better than any other person, but let's say someone's more established in the industry you're in. And the next person after that one is going to be even more established, and it gets easier to get to the top. There's this compounding effect of podcasting over a long period of time that if you just endure the first, year, 2 years, where you might think about quitting and whatnot, it becomes more and more rewarding.
There's 3 people that I encourage new podcasters to connect with when they start their show. Somebody who's ahead of them that they can look to as inspiration. Get in their world, follow them, listen to what they do, use how their experience to help you shape your show, and reach out to them and tell them that they inspire you. That's the first person. The second one is somebody who's kind of in the same spot that you're in. Maybe you're just starting and they're just starting. So the two of you as peers work together on each other's shows and help each other because you're both in the same spot. And then don't forget somebody's behind you who's just thinking about starting a show. And the fact that you have 1, 2, 3, 10 episodes, they have nothing. So reach back into that world and bring somebody along with you, because the best teachers I find are the best students, because you're learning. And as you learn, you give what you learn to people around you and you help people. You don't have to have every answer. You just have to have a answer. And the fact that you're doing something that inspires someone else, you become someone's inspiration. And that whole circle just continues. So those 3 people, someone ahead of you, someone beside you, and someone behind you. Every podcaster needs to establish that right from the beginning.
That's great advice, yes. And it's easy to look up with someone ahead of you or someone at your level, but to look back at someone who's behind you and help them and pull them forward, that is the one that's easy to overlook and forget about. But it is equally important because learn by teaching. I don't know what the saying is, but that is the best way to deeply understand a topic by helping others understand it. Yep.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about some of the people you've had on your show and maybe a starting point, because I know with that many episodes, Sani, people come there and they're like, I don't even know where to start. You got so many episodes. Where do I begin? Where would you send a new listener into your catalog?
A new listener, I mean, the show is evolving, has been evolving over 4 years. It was early on, it was a show about digital optimization. So there was SEO, there was CRO, there was all kind of content, all that stuff. It went more towards UX and conversion optimization lately, but this latest season, I call it season 3, even though the first season was 150 episodes, like a telenovela, and now I have shorter seasons. It's more about the optimization mindset applied to life in general. So I speak to people who are really good at optimizing, and then I try to understand their mindset and how that can help the listener. For example, I had a person and this was probably my biggest guest so far, a person who worked at Amazon. She was the UX designer, early UX designer, and she was in the Netflix documentary a few months ago about Amazon. It's called Buy Now. If you want to listen to any episode that really encapsulates what no hacks mindset is and what optimizing for the good and not just for profits is, I encourage everyone to listen to that episode.
Okay. We'll have a link to that in the notes for that. Everyone to go check that out. Great. As you podcast, how are you seeing yourself as a host growing? Or are you seeing yourself as you listen back to some of the older episodes going, wow, I'm actually improving?
Yeah, it's hard to... I don't like talking about myself in that way, but my first episodes were bad, like horrible. So I have to say yes. I have to say absolutely yes. One thing that's improving, we'll talk about Podpacer, my process. I want to make my process as airtight as possible. I don't want to waste time on time where time doesn't need to be wasted. I want the guests to feel like they're guided through every step before, during, and after the recording. And the feedback I'm getting from the guests usually is, we've never had someone treat us like that. Even people who go on podcasts frequently. So this is the part that I know I'm improving because I'm putting a lot of effort in. Now, my interviewing skills, I don't know. I'm better at listening than I was 4 years ago, without a doubt. And that helps. That has to help.
My wife tells me I'm a better listener because of podcasting.
Because you have to.
Yeah, and I'm also talked out by the time she gets home from work. Dave's pretty quiet in the corner because I've talked all day. She's like, I love this podcasting thing. It's making our marriage much better. You shut up a bit more and you talk less. It's awesome.
That's funny.
So,
That's funny. But no, if you want to have an interview-based podcast, you have to learn or to know how to listen to people. Right. It's not, sure, sometimes it's kind of a co-host thing where, you told me this is more of like a co-host between the guest and the host. And that's fine, but still, you have to learn, you have to know how to listen. Because the conversation, you can prepare an outline for an interview, and you can be detailed without outline. You need to know where to steer left and where to steer right, depending on how the guest is feeling. So I have a few tricks. When I'm preparing my outlines, I have strategically placed shorter sections of the interview. Like, I have ridiculous rapid fire question after the first section, because I want the guest to get into the second half of the interview a lot more relaxed, laughing. I want to have those social media clips. So, strategically prepare to guide the guests, the highs and lows of the episode. Let's put it that way. You can prepare that. You can learn that. It's not just magic happening when you click record. There's a lot of preparation coming into that.
Any one of those questions that come to mind would be, we can insert one now. If I was a guest on your show, what kind of question would you throw up?
That's a good question. It's always related to the main topic of the episode. So it's not, it's never your first guess or that would be a total hack. It wouldn't make sense. But it's always something related. And Podpacer looks at their previous interviews, basically. So I always try to ask them something that no one has, that kind of makes sense, but doesn't really make sense. So if the guest starts laughing when you ask them something, but are eager to respond, that's the kind of question.
Okay. All right. I love, sometimes the things have happened to me, Sani. I've finished the recording, hit stop, and then the guest looks at me like right into the camera and says, "Who are you?" And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, I've never, ever talked about that before. I've never had anybody show interest in that part of my story before. I've never talked about that before. I've had authors on my author podcast. I've given them an idea for their next book in real time, and they're madly scribbling down an idea for something that's coming in the future. I've had authors tell me, my book hasn't even been released. You just quoted something from chapter 3. How did you know that? Like, who told you that? I'm like, I haven't seen your book yet. I don't.
Because you care. Because you care. Right? You want to make that connection. So early even before I started the podcast, do you know the show called Hot Ones on YouTube? It's kind of a cultural phenomenon.
The chicken wings.
Yes. The way, it's not Sean, the host, does all the questions and they have a research team. They have a full research team. But especially early on, every episode, every guest would have a moment where they say, "How do you know that?"
Yeah.
When they ask us something. So that's exactly the moment that I try to get with every guest. Like, why did you ask me that? Why did you come up with that? If you can get that magical thing where you show them that they care more than any previous interview they did, you're doing great. You're going to do great.
I've seen people on that show mid-question interrupt the host, Sean, and go, "I don't know who you have working for you, but never fire them." Never.
Yes,
that was the best question I've ever heard.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's the moment. That's the magical moment. Yes.
Yeah, if we can bring an element of that into our podcast. And I think it just comes down to caring.
Yeah.
Like, we can just do a recording, get through the interview and see ya, or we can go a level deeper and get into actually the person in front of us and honor their time, right? And that's going to make it stand out for our guest as well. The opportunity to share something that I've never talked about before. And I was really open, or I really got to talk about something I'm passionate about that I never get to talk about. I'm more apt to share that with my community than another interview where I talk about the same 5 things I've talked about 100 times. My community doesn't care about that anymore. But this opportunity to go somewhere different. I was a guest on Sani's show, and Sani just brought out these amazing questions. I'm going to want to share it without even being asked or prompted by the host to share. So
that's what it should be. That's what it should be. And especially when let's say you have high profile guests who do 2 episodes per month, 2 podcast interviews per month. They go on podcasts. If they get the same 5 questions every single time, and you go in and ask them the same 5 questions, not because you copied, but because the lazy, shallow research gives you those 5 questions, and everyone does the lazy, shallow research. The interview is going to be so bad and so dry if you do the same 5 questions versus if you just flip one, just change one question. Maybe start with something they don't expect. And that is easy, but it's also shocking how rarely you see that happen.
And that's part of what Podpacer helps to address. Nice segue, right? So you're bringing that in. So let's pretend for a moment, Sani, you and I jump on an elevator. We're going to go up a few floors in this elevator, just you and I. I turn to you and go, "Hey, you're Sani from Podpacer." And I ask you this question. We only have a short amount of time on this elevator ride to answer this question. I'm like, "Sani, what does Podpacer, what answer does Podpacer give me for podcasters that nobody else does? Like, what makes Podpacer different than everything else? What would you say?
Which floor are we? Which floor are we?
We have 10 floors.
That's not enough. It helps you get in that chair, starting the interview. It helps you be more prepared than otherwise, because it helps you research the guests, research the topic, and research whatever you want to do. You give it some sources. Let's say you have a 3-hour YouTube video or a podcast episode where your guest was on, or you have 10 episodes where your guest was on, and you want to listen to all of them, but 10 hours of podcasts, let's be real here. We all have jobs. Like, it's not possible. It will transcribe, it will analyze, it will know what you want to talk about, who your guest is, and it will suggest talking points for your episode. Then you select the talking points, and then after that, based on your outline template, it will generate the outline. So that's the core. That's the first feature we had when we launched. I think that's enough. And the reason we focused on that, it goes back to Hot Ones and Sean Evans. I wanted to have that moment for my own podcast. I wanted to be able to, this is before it was Podpacer. It was just a tool hosted on Cloudflare where you just give it transcripts and it gives you ideas. I wanted to have my guests say, "How did you know that? Like, did you really listen to that podcast?" And yeah, I was able to say yes, even though I didn't listen to all of it, but I knew what it was about. So that's one. Number 2, what we're working on right now is promotion. We have a content waterfall system. You give it your podcast episode. It creates like 50 pieces of content based on it. And because it's a podcast, it does it in your tone of voice. So Twitter threads, LinkedIn posts, blog posts, it learns your tone of voice from the episode, from the transcript that we transcribe as well. And then it just writes all of that. Now we're working on image-based content. So, the quotes you can post on LinkedIn or whatever social media, Instagram, we're doing that. And the final one is the AI assistant, which it's hard to even describe, but we transcribe every single episode you have. We analyze, we tag it, we put it in a database, and then you can talk like, "Hey, find me my last 5 episodes about SEO. Let's write a blog post that mixes quotes and thoughts from that guest, from the guests in those episodes. That's just one example. You can do whatever you can do with ChatGPT as a general kind of tool, you can do specifically for your podcast. So if you have 5 episodes, it means nothing to you. But if you have like 500 or 100, it's really, really special.
Okay. Those transcriptions then, I know that's one thing I hear a lot of people saying, Dave, I need a service for transcriptions, and I'm having a hard time finding a quality transcription service. Is there any future path where a podcaster could use Podpacer to grab the transcriptions that you're already using and creating?
I mean, we don't have that option to download them now, but yeah, that's just, we can easily add something like that. Yes. And I think we should. That's
that
a good idea.
That would be a value add, I think.
That's a good idea.
Podcasters would pay for.
That's
to know
a good
that's
idea.
Done, right? Because I know for me, I would love to take my podcasts and turn them into chapters of a new book that I'd love to work on. I've got 500 episodes. Content's already there. I need to be able to take all that information, put it into words, and then start formulating it from there.
That makes
sense.
I'm
going to have to go hire somebody to do that for me and pay them an hourly rate. I would like to just come to Podpacer and pay you, right? You have the tools.
It's totally doable. And speaking of the book, I'm not a book author, but I'm going to try to release a book for my 200th episode, which is going to be next month, I guess. 200 lessons about digital optimization from no hacks. So just compile that. There's going to be an SEO episode, a CRO episode, experimentation, UX. There's going to be 8 or 9 chapters. I'm working on that right now. And the AI assistant is actually helping me do that. Yep. So we're thinking about the same things. Yeah, I love that.
I did an episode a while ago back on How to Podcast about SEO versus GEO, generative and search, right?
Yeah.
So, and the fact that SEO is kind of keyword based, throw a lot of keywords in there and hopefully you'll catch something. Where generative search is more conversational in tone between the creator and the search engine. And you get different results back. You don't get a sea of pages, page 1, page 2, page 3 like Google. You get one result. And that one result has linked everything, like in Perplexity, for example. You have all those attachments and links where you can go further, but you're getting a single result. And what's really interesting is when I do searches on topics I've covered in the past, in the top right corner of my screen, I see my YouTube link to an episode of my past episodes as a result.
Right.
And I'm like, whoa, wow, like that's amazing.
Google is changing. Google is advancing. Even Google, it's not really keyword based that much anymore. It's about intent. It's conversational. But you know, when you say search is becoming conversational, you know what's conversational? Podcasts. So they're becoming a huge component. And currently, there's not a single search engine or big search engine that is indexing podcasts beyond descriptions and show notes, or if you give it transcriptions. I mean, that kind of search engine that understands your podcast. Podpacer AI does that, but it's not a public search engine. It's a chat for you where you can talk and find anything you want. But whoever builds a podcast, indexed, transcribed search engine, I mean, there's so much knowledge buried away in MP3 files somewhere.
Yeah. One of the big questions I get too a lot is people can't find podcasts through a listening platform, through Google, through YouTube. Our podcasts aren't naturally surfacing. And they always say that podcast search is really hard in these apps. Now, I have a counterpoint to that. I had a teacher in Canada who lives on the other end of Canada from where I am. And she teaches grade 6 class of girls in an all-girls school. And she was doing a component on podcasting. So in true teacher research style, she went to Apple. She pulled out her phone, went on Apple Podcasts, and she typed in how to podcast. Guess who showed up?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. So I show up on her screen. She has no idea who I am. She's never listened to a single episode. She's never searched me ever before. She presses play, listens to an episode, reaches out to me. This was a Monday. Says, hey, I'm doing this component, this class on Wednesday, same week, a couple days later. Can you come and teach for an hour to a group of 22 girls about podcasting, grade 6? Sure. So she found me on Apple, which everyone says you can't find anything on Apple. She found me on Apple, and I was teaching a class 2 days later to 22 girls in a net for 1 hour.
That's
and
impressive.
I was on the screen, a virtual teacher teaching the class. So the whole thing, can you kind of help us understand this thing about podcasts can't be found?
Right.
Can you please help us with that?
So let's go to early days of SEO. The keywords, titles, meta descriptions. This is where podcast search is right now, because it knows the title of the episode, it knows the title of the podcast, description of the podcast, and user-provided description of an episode. So whatever is in your show notes that you put in Buzzsprout or wherever you're hosting your podcast is what can be searched and what can be used to find your podcast. The next, that's how Google started. It was just keywords and titles back in like 20 years ago. I don't know how long. The next step or the evolution of podcast search will be that every word will be transcribed and searchable. So the search engines will be able to understand. I'm not gonna say you got lucky, but it's the title of your podcast that helped you be found when they search for how to podcast. If you had a different title that's not how to podcast, that's why you should podcast, they would not find you because search is dumb. The next iteration of that podcast search, I'm pretty sure whenever that happens, is going to be significantly smarter. So you can have a podcast, even if it's called Dave's Podcasting Lessons. If you frequently say how to podcast, I'll teach you how to podcast, that search should be able to find you, and not just because of the title. Again, well-deserved, and they should have found you. That's how it should have been. I totally agree with that. But it's still, there are limitations in podcast search. Like you said, Apple Podcast and search is just not something that works well.
When I have an author on my author podcast, I encourage them in our pre-chat that when we get together and we talk about your book, we talk about your website, don't just say to the every answer in my book or on my podcast or on my website. I say the name, like say it out loud.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because the more times you say it, it also helps people retain it, because they're at the gym, walking the dog, doing something. The more they hear the name of your podcast, your website, your book, the better. You don't have to do it every time, but don't just say on my website, in my book. Say the name, because it's also then can be found potentially as we feed these imaginary search engines and everything.
That's a great point.
There's something there that if you just say on my website and in my book, you're kind of limiting your reach a little bit.
Yes, and even if, let's ignore search, even if you say just my website and then I'm running, and I think when I'm done with the run, I'll check the episode notes and I'll find the link. No, I'll forget. I guarantee you I'll forget 10 times by the time I'm finished running. So this is why it's important to keep saying, most people are not natural salespeople. So I think that's why we don't have that, I need to tell them. But it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary. So my podcast is no hacks. Let me say that again. You can find it anywhere. So yes.
See how you did that? I like that. That's good.
Absolutely.
Okay, on the bottom of Podpacer, I see this comparison list. And I'd love to kind of go through this kind of rapid style and kind of address Podpacer versus ... Gonna have like a battle royal kind of a match happening here. But let's kind of talk through a little bit about how Podpacer is similar to or complements or does something different than the following. Okay, and you can kind of lead us through this. Everyone can go to the website and read more, so I encourage you to go to podpacer.com. Again, we just did it there. So for Podpacer, there's one you've called out, Podpacer versus Riverside. Now, Riverside for most people is going to be an online recording platform. It does some editing. It does a bunch of great stuff. Great team over there at Riverside. Podpacer versus Riverside. Who's going to win?
Who's going to win?
Let's go.
Dale, like I said earlier, Podpacer is the one that helps you be prepared when you hit record. Good. Riverside is the one that takes over after you hit record. Nice. So versus, every SaaS business needs those versus pages, so that's why that's the title. But basically, and the ones listed here, Riverside, Descript, Buzzsprout, those are the ones I use and love. And those are the ones I'm not even trying to compete with Podpacer. Like they're good enough, those three. But how can you beat Descript at editing at AI-based editing. Like no one ever will, or not soon. So Podpacer versus Riverside. Podpacer will get you ready. Riverside will help you record. If you want to edit with Riverside, I guess that works as well. I don't. I use Descript because I think it's a more of a dedicated editor. But with the new features we have with Podpacer, even after you're done recording and editing and your episode is done, we will write the promotional content, the social media posts, all that stuff, show notes. I believe in a better way than most other platforms because we know your entire podcast, and that is all used when we are writing those show notes because we have the assistant that knows everything that was spoken on your podcast. And then let's go Descript. I would not. I don't think anyone should dare to compete with Descript because that's how fast they're growing, and that's how. I mean, they have weekly updates almost, if not more frequent than that. And I love Descript. I would not have my podcast. Probably wouldn't have I would probably stop about a year and a half in if it wasn't for Descript because editing with Adobe Audition, I think it was, just took me so much time. And with Descript, even someone like me can edit and can sound decent enough. And sometimes that's enough. That's good enough. And then the last one, Buzzsprout. Again, not trying to compete with a hosting company. And Buzzsprout is amazing. I've used them for 4 years in 1 month. And I'm not looking at anything else. I'm not trying to build a competitor. I don't want to do that. But Podpacer will do the before and now after. These other tools will do everything in between, the recording, the editing, the publishing, and hosting.
Nice. So
and then ChatGPT. I'll just add ChatGPT.
Yeah. ChatGPT, yeah.
We're way better than ChatGPT at writing any social content and getting you ready because ChatGPT works with you upload a file. If you give it 5 files, it's going to start getting confused. It's going to start mixing them up. You have to remind it every time, this is my podcast. This is the... No, we have that in a database, and every time we have a prompt, it's just used. You don't have to copy and paste. So, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I love how the 3, Riverside, Descript, and Buzzsprout, work hand in hand with Podpacer, right?
Yep.
And it just that Podpacer has a little different approach to what you do that, again, complements what they do. So as you look at the website and you're like, oh, so Podpacer is going to replace Buzzsprout? No, that's not what this is about, right? I want to make that clear for people that come to the website.
Absolutely. And those 3, the reason I have those 3 is because I've been using all 3 of those for a very long time. I love them. I recommend them without even using my referral code or affiliate code because I just think that that's how good they are.
Yeah, good. And then, so the whole ChatGPT world and the fact that there's a new AI platform built every 5 seconds, it's really hard for us as indie podcasters on our own, doing our own thing, to even know where to start. We get overwhelmed. Right. We get like all these voices telling us, use this, use this, use this. And we don't know it natively. We have to understand the language of the platform. We have to know how to prompt and how to prompt the way for that platform compared to the other platform. And it gets overwhelming to the point where some people are like, you know what, Sani, I already have a full-time job. I don't want to do AI. I'm going to walk away from this. But I'm missing the results and the benefits of leveraging these tools, right? So the fact that your Podpacer takes AI and kind of hyper-focuses it on podcasting instead of being a tool for everybody, your platform is more a tool for podcasters. So you're bringing in the best.
Exclusively, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In the back end, we have the prompts that we use to write all this social content. But what we do, what makes it different versus, let's say, ChatGPT and copy-paste mess you have with ChatGPT? Because, it kind of brought copy-paste back to life, ChatGPT using it to write content because people just go back and forth between Google Drive, Google Docs, and ChatGPT, and then copy some content. What we do is, when you onboard your podcast with Podpacers, you sign up, immediately we ask you to onboard your podcast, you give us your feed, and then we know when you have episodes, and with your latest, when there's a new episode, you just click once, and we generate all of the content pieces for you. Like, there's no prompt, there's nothing. It just magically appears, and you can use them. And now this week, we're working on image-based. So we have, like, let's say a key takeaway from your episode. We have 5 key takeaways from the episode as text content. Now we're working on creating image-based content. So we have one AI prompt that says, hey, what should the color scheme be for this image based on the cover art of the podcast? Like, what's something that works well as it's legible, accessible enough? And then we have another one that gets the 5 key takeaways. We generate those 5 images, and you can just share them on your social.
Wow.
There's nothing to type. There's literally nothing to type.
And that's what I know when I talk to podcasters. That's some of the stuff they struggle with. They just don't have the time
Yep.
or the expertise, or, I'm an expert in coaching and helping people buy real estate. I don't have time to learn all this stuff. I just, there's no way. And to hire a virtual assistant and then teach them how I talk and how I show up, it's never going to be the same. So then to have a tool like yours, I can then put myself into the tool and it can replicate how I would talk and how I would approach my audience.
Yep.
And then it becomes a resource that works behind the scenes, and they don't take breaks. They just keep working for me. I love it.
That's the idea, really. I have a full-time job. It's more than a full-time job. When you have your own company, it's never 40 hours a week. I have that, and I do the podcast on the side. I know how difficult it can be to find time, not to talk to people, like interview people. That's the fun part. That's the easy part. But all of the prep work and everything that you need after to promote the episode, it just doesn't get done unless unless you have a VA or something that helps you do it faster. So this is the idea with Podpacer, really. And also Podpacer, I run a lot, the pacers at marathons, the people that carry the 3 hour, 3:30, 4 hour finishing time for a marathon. I mean, it's like a pacer for podcasters. It will guide you. It will walk you through so you don't get left behind. And that was the whole idea. Okay. That's why the logo is like a runner, like almost like a runner icon.
I can see that now. It makes total sense. I love it. Okay, on the website too, I want to cover a little bit of this before we let you run off on me.
Actually, I am going for a run after this.
See, there you go. So you talk about on the website how Podpacer helps podcasters create better episodes faster. And you have a 4-step process. Everyone can read all this on the website.
Yep.
But we're just in a high level. The 4 steps that you have on your website, you talk about onboarding your podcast, creating a new episode, add a guest, add research resources, and you select your talking points. Can we just kind of break those down quickly,
Absolutely.
Sani, a little bit? So the onboarding your podcast.
You sign up, and the first screen you get is, what's your podcast RSS feed? If you have a podcast, you can say, I don't have a podcast yet, and then you skip the step. But let's say you do, we will import the title, the description, your average episode length. We'll try to come up with a template for your outlines, all that stuff. The tone of the podcast, is it friendly, casual? We'll pick that up from the descriptions. Second one, and this is the episode planner tool. So we have 2 more tools added after this. Second one, create a new episode. You say, I want to have an episode that's about UX design in digital marketing or whatever it is. What do you want to achieve with that episode? I want to teach my otherwise technical audience that doesn't really know about UX, about some basics of UX. Who's your guest? Guest name, you can type in guest bio, all that, or you can just go to their LinkedIn and save profile as PDF. There's an option for that in LinkedIn. Okay. You just upload that and we will process the PDF and we will populate all those fields for you. So like I said, no typing, because podcasters talk, they don't type. We're trying to help them not type. And then you add some research sources. That could be a file you upload. It could be a PDF, a document. It could be an MP3 file. It could be any podcast episode from anything that's public, basically, or a YouTube video, or a web page. So if you have an article online that you want to use as a source, you can add all of those or any of those, and we will process them. And based on what the topic of the episode is and what your podcast is about, we will suggest 5 to 10 talking points from each source, depending on the length. And then you check the ones you want to use in your episode. And then based on the template for your outline, we will generate an outline. And you sit in that chair and you're ready to interview a person you don't know.
Is Podpacer limited to the source data I give them about my guest? Or will it also then, in addition to what I give them, search beyond that
this content? Tool currently only works with the sources you feed it. So the reason for that is because we don't want to take away the creative side of preparing an interview. We might add some suggested sources, but I don't think we'll ever just find and put them in without you knowing what it is. So when I say suggested sources, maybe you type in your guest, you type in the topic, and we will suggest maybe these 10 podcast episodes from these other podcasts make sense for you, and you check the ones you want to use, check the description, see what it's about, and how old it is when it was published, and then that way we can suggest, but never, I don't think a podcaster's flow should be, there's something in here, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm very anti that.
Okay. And then going back quickly to the onboard podcast section, there's a huge debate in podcasting, what a podcast is, what it isn't, all that stuff. I really want to get into that. But you're mentioning an RSS feed to get set up. Is there a potential for somebody who has a YouTube-based podcast that does not have an RSS feed, feeding Apple, Spotify, and all that, to participate in this at this point, or maybe in the future?
Well, not like this. So I would say no, because we need. If there's an RSS feed, we know when there's something new. So if YouTube gives you an RSS feed, yeah, sure. But I think podcast. Let's not get into the debate. Yeah. I think a podcast is something that's audio first, and then maybe it has a video. That's my take on it.
Okay.
I'm not saying video podcasts but I'm not saying one is bad, one is better than the other. When I think about podcast, it's some person with a microphone, and with or without a camera. That's the way I see it. But you cannot be with a camera and with or without a microphone. So that tells you it's audio first.
So the reason I'm asking is I have people who I've had on the show who have platforms for podcasters, and it's built on RSS.
Right.
But people who come to podcasting have a different opinion of what podcasting is, and they choose a different path. So when you choose a different path outside of an RSS feed, then you don't always get the benefits of an RSS-based
Exactly.
tool.
Yep.
So and then they get problems. They get emails from people saying, "I can't use your program, Sani. I can't upload my YouTube channel to Podpacer. Like, what's wrong? You're broken. Something's wrong here." Well, it's the fact that it's based on RSS.
Yep.
And then that's where it lives. And then YouTube is a counter to that, right?
Also, YouTube terms say that you are not allowed to download or process their videos. There are ways. Descript was, you were able to put in a YouTube video in Descript and process that into your video, put it into your video, but now they don't have that anymore. So I'm not going to be a conspiracy theory person, but I guess they got blocked by YouTube or warned or whatever it is. So YouTube is just not an open standard. YouTube is a platform that wants to control everything. A podcast is something that's open. It's an MP3 file that anyone can access from anywhere.
Yeah. So as you're coming to Podpacer for the first time, understand that Podpacer works with an RSS feed. And if you're not sure about any of those things, I'm trying to save your support team from a bunch of emails.
Thank you for that. Right? It makes sense. Yes. And I would love to hear what's your take on what a podcast is.
At the end of the day, I find that a podcast is what the audience says it is.
Fair.
To argue with someone who doesn't understand podcasting and they say, "Oh, Sani, I checked out your podcast. Oh, great. What did you listen on? Oh, on YouTube." Well, no, that's not a podcast. Yeah. Rah, rah, rah. People start getting all upset. A podcast is what the audience tells you it is. That's kind of what it becomes eventually. Now,
that makes sense.
There is the how it actually works behind the scenes, but at the end of the day, a podcast is a person with a microphone in front of their face. Is that a podcast? Then I can be on TikTok and have a microphone and be a podcast. Technically, if that's a definition. So I love RSS. The fact that I can click one button and my content goes everywhere. Yep. That's the benefit. And then I can also work with tools like Podpacer and all these other amazing tools built on RSS because I'm using that platform.
RSS is awesome. Any open standard is awesome. For me, a podcast is, can I consume this content with my screen off on my phone?
True.
If I cannot, it's not a podcast. If it requires all of my attention from all of my senses, to me, it's not a standard or traditional podcast.
There you go. See? And that's what this is, just evolving over time and
absolutely
becoming whatever, right? But just to understand, if you're not using an RSS feed, you're not going to benefit from some of these amazing tools because they're built on that platform.
And this is not just Podpacer. This is not just Podpacer. Every tool that's built focusing on RSS, that's using RSS to learn about your podcast, it's just not going to work as well with YouTube or at all. I don't even know.
Good. Sani, as we wrap up, kind of what's exciting for you with Podpacer? Do you have a dream? Kind of whatever you can share. You have a dream of kind of where you want to go with Podpacer in the future?
Yeah, ideally, what we're working on is right now is finding a few really big podcasts that are going to help us make this an absolutely essential tool for them. So never trying to replace Buzzsprout, Riverside, and Descript, but there's so much of that process that no one is touching, and we want to help with that. You can either go to ChatGPT and have endless prompts and many different conversations and try to figure it out on your own, or you can use a tool like Podpacer. So we are trying to help where no one else is helping. That's the goal.
Excellent. We go to podpacer.com. That's where we go. And let's plug that podcast one more time, Sani. Where do we go for your show?
The podcast is No Hacks. If you search for No Hacks, even on Apple Podcast, it will be able to find it. Yes, because it's a full title. But if you go to nohackspod.com or at nohackspod on LinkedIn, Instagram, maybe even X, I'm not even sure, you'll find all the detail there.
And a word of encouragement for our podcasters out there, what would you like to say to them as we wrap up?
If you have any doubts about whether doing something is the right thing or not, and you really feel like you want to do it, just do it and never regret. So that dream guest you have, just reach out and ask them.
And go try the roaster show. It's really fun.
Absolutely.
It's like I said, you might need an extra layer of skin when you see the results. But for me, I chuckled. I thought it was hilarious. So thank you for putting that on, Sani. That was like a nice little Easter egg that I didn't anticipate when I first came to the page. But I'm like, what's this? And I'm going to click, oh, I want to play with this. So everyone go try it out for your show. It's really exciting. So Sani, thank you so much for doing this. I'd love to have you back in the future.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, we'll talk again for sure.
Right.
Yep.
Awesome. Everyone, all information is always in the show notes. Go there, support another great tool for podcasters. And if all this seems overwhelming for you, then just go talk to Sani and his team, and they'll help you because they have a great support team as well. Sani, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast all the way through to the end. I love having these great guest co-hosts on the show to share their podcasts with you. You have some homework to do. And what I'm asking of you is to go check out our featured guest co-host today. Go over and listen to their podcast. The links are always in the show notes. And I'd love for you to go and give them your love and support. And I think if we can all do that for each other, podcasting will be a lot more fun for all of us. So it's time to do what you've asked others to do for you. It's time to do for this guest co-host. Links in the show notes. Go over and check out their show and leave them a review, do the follow, go listen to their episodes in full, the entirety of an episode, which again shows to the apps that it's a good podcast because you're going there and you're staying to the end. It's probably one of the best ways you can help a podcaster grow their audience and be shown to more people is by simply going and listening wherever you listen to the very end, like you're doing right now here. This is the perfect way to signal to wherever you're listening on, this is a podcast worth promoting. And all of the apps want you to stay on as long as possible. So go over and listen to our guest co-host episode and leave them some feedback. If they have a buy me a coffee, send them a coffee. If they have a speak pipe, send them a voice message. If they have an email, send them an email. If they're on Instagram, send them a direct message. Do something to support our guest co-hosts. They've given up their time to be here with you, to be here with me, and we can give that back to them with time and attention, our love, our support. Thank you for doing all that for me as well. Here on the How to Podcast series, we'll talk to you soon for our next episode.